Somewhere around 1983, somewhere around 1983 is where my wife got this guy right here, which started it all. She grew up normally, upper middle class home, a Garfield balloon here, a Goofy doll there. But somewhere around college, there was this big fighting match between Goofy and Garfield. And essentially, Garfield landed the knockout punch. But again, the item count, reasonable, 100 and something items. You know, American Dream, 2 dogs from North Shore Animal League. But somewhere around 1998, we all remember it. You know that sound. Some of you people don't know the sound. I don't think you do, or okay? Dial-up modem. Some of us remember it. What a nightmare. You want to talk a bigger nightmare? eBay combined with dial-up modem. Of course, President Garfield comes up, which is the arch nemesis of eBay searches. The most significant, one of the first major events was the Garfield cruise. It was celebrating the 25th birthday. It was not the smartest thing that Jim Davis ever did, locking himself in a 700-foot tin can with 200 of his most obsessed collectors and their husbands. But during the Chalk Talk, he was explaining the history of Garfield and how he got started. And what's interesting about this portion of the program was that he grew up on a farm. But because he had asthma, he could not really work on the farm, so he kind of stayed inside the house and drew. Because there were so many cats around the farm, you know, you didn't have to be very observative to catch the mannerisms around the cats. Any cat people here? Because we're not. We're actually dog people. My wife and I foster for North Shore Animal League the dogs. So we're on this part, and this guy in the audience starts heckling Jim. But as it turns out, Dagwood, creator of Dagwood, was on the cruise with us. So none of us knew it. Dean Young is his name. He presented Jim with a plaque. That was my first exposure to the collectors as a group. Thereafter, we started going to what's called the Garfield Gathering, the Garfield Collectors Convention. When we hosted it in 2011, we had it, our major event was the Atlantis Marine World. We went to Adventureland. Imagine, if you will, absolutely having no control over your vacation, being told where it's gonna be at some random city. The biggest shocker that we ever had was Tennessee. We were going to Dollywood, because I'm expecting one amusement park and then back to the hotel. But around this area is just a paradise of family-friendly, more amazing stuff than they even have in Orlando. If you couldn't find something to do in Tennessee, there was absolutely something wrong with you. So it's kind of weird having somebody pick where you're going to go on vacation. So now we're getting involved in the Collectors Convention, and we bid against Texas, and somewhere around 2008 we were bidding for the 2009 event. And what was interesting about the whole situation is we lost. And what we found out is that when people think New York, because we were bidding stay in Jersey, play in Manhattan, people think they're going to get shot and killed. We were pitching some pretty fun ideas. Like, for example, I noticed people just wear their Garfield clothing, you know, and you'd think it's a Garfield clothing convention. So what I did is I had people email me photographs of their rooms, of their houses, of their Garfield collection. And as we're, you know, sitting down for dinners, we'd have my projectors playing on a loop everyone's collection, and people would just be mesmerized because it was like being invited into their home to see the collection. What you're seeing here right now is the Indiana area. But what's interesting about that, because Jim Davis, unlike David Letterman, never left the Indiana area, he bought 100 acres of farmlands, put on a multi-million-dollar, you know, facility. When you drive up his block, it's farm, farm, farm. Where the hell did that come from? Farm, farm, farm. 4 times so far. At least 4 times, exactly. And what his company's done is sponsored these big giant fiberglass statues in the community. So how many people deliberately choose as their vacation to drive around the Indiana area photographing and videoing statues? If you guys were remotely, you know, Garfield collectors, you'd be hanging on every, you know, frame of this video. So anyway, this is what's called the Garfield Trail. When we hosted 2011, this is what we were promoting. So what we learned is, because they think that we have guns, is that we were promoting it with lighthouses. We had to bring the suburbs in, the beaches, not the New York City scary gun people. Ironically, half the people who voted against us went into the city and were amazed at what they saw.
An 18-hole par 71 Championship Golf Course.
So we were hoping to attract Jim Davis because he's a big golfer. So jumping ahead, does anyone know Rudy?
Yeah.
Rudy the auctioneer, all right.
Yeah.
So we hired Rudy the auctioneer. Rudy did something that nobody else in the past actually did, and that's actually got to know the group. So Rudy was basically downright charming, and he was, he got to know the group. When he got started, he physically, somebody would walk up to him and says, we just wanted to blah blah blah, this group, and President Garfield was been around in so and so, and a woman walks up to him, whispers in his ear, and he goes, "It's a cat," and everyone laughs, obviously. It was a setup, but anyway. So what Rudy brought to the table was a charming appeal to the auction. It wasn't just a stale, give me I have 5, if you have a 10, do a 10, do I have a 15? So we did this opening. I say that because fast forward to 2014, we lost our auctioneer 2 days before the actual auction, and it really didn't take long for them to say in 2012, we lost our auctioneer, and I'm sure that the meeting went something like this. Okay, who in our group has a big mouth and never shuts up? What about Robert? Let's see if he'll do it. And I have been the auctioneer ever since 2012. A, we don't have to pay someone anymore, and B, I work for free, and C, I know the group. So I walk around, and every time somebody screws up and does something stupid, I write it down on my little notepad, put it in my pocket for the opening monologue for the convention. So basically, they're terrified of me because they see me with the notepad.
A few extra ground rules. Being that I've been around for a while and make some observations over the past few auctions. So here they go, really quickly. Rule number 1, due to a mutual restraining order, Gary and Joy, please remain 20 feet apart at all times. All right? Barbara, where are you? Barbara, no pulling hair.
That happens.
You're laughing, but...
Rolling on the ground, pulling hair and fighting with her friends over an auction item. Coming in for landing. So essentially, we then get contacted by the Guinness people. We had no intention of, we didn't know we had a Guinness World Record. They're like, the current record's 3,000. Can you beat it? I'm like in the living room alone. So we did what we had to do. We didn't take them seriously at first. They called us a year later. They said, you guys want to beat that record? Sure, we'll do it. So, and then we submitted the 6,190 items. Part of access to doing what we are and as we do it is the ability to get into Muncie, Indiana again, in the mothership, the headquarters. I mean, if you're a Trekkie, that's like sitting on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. So we essentially got back to Muncie, Indiana. We had a private audience.
It's actually amazing. I mean, Guinness contacted me, and
That's Jim Davis.
I had the biggest collection, but
They contacted you?
yeah, they contacted me last year. So my website, and the Guinness Garfield record was something that they were looking to have broken. So they saw my website and all the items that I have and said, hey, do you think you can give it a shot? So we started counting everything and taking pictures of everything. We said, yeah, we think we can give it a shot.
What's it like for you when you're here? I mean...
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, to be in here and see all the new things that I don't have and I need to get.
So this is basically our excuse to bring in the subject of North Shore Animal League.
Through your foster parents and all
Okay, yeah, I know the league.
So we are.
organizations.
Item count 13,420-ish. So basically, they were discussing North Shore Animal League. We're talking to Jim about that. We're giving 5% of our profit to North Shore Animal League as a standing donation. Lifelong book sales for the history of it. And there's other ways they can make more money. Like if they just did a shout out and send it through their Amazon link, they'd make a lot more money, which is a much higher percentage. What you're seeing here is a crawl of the 40 plus dogs that we've fostered over the last 4.5 years for North Shore. As I mentioned, we are dog people, and our true cause is North Shore Animal League, and we absolutely believe in their mission because they're the largest no-kill shelter in the country. So we're glad that this presentation also would help educate people on no-kill shelters and people adopting. We've been ranked #1 in our category. By the way, take a look at the counter. I think we wore it out. So we've been trending on Amazon right now for the last week. #1 in our category, #4 in a little broader category, top 40 in pop culture. Our ebook has been #7 in all of pop culture. If you know of anybody, any organizations, any libraries that we're going to do this with my wife for free. We'll do book signings and we'll do this presentation. We'll do the entire thing. It's about 41 minutes. Hey,